Staying aware in the face of intense triggers can seem like an impossible mission sometimes. You're sitting there on the meditation pillow, feeling all the peace and serenity, and think, I am one with everything. I am the peace and calm at the core of my being. Nothing can move me. And then later in the morning, your wife or boyfriend does that irritating thing, and you can feel the heat rising, and there's a bit of an antsy conversation. And then you go to work and you get the email from the boss that's just the worst. Like, what is he even playing at? And it feels like you're a pressure canister about to explode. It can seem like, despite all the willpower in the world, you can't seem to stop yourself reacting. It seems like the thoughts take you over and possess you. And you know deep down that there's a rational response, and it isn't to lash out and take it personal, but you just can't seem to help it. In this video, I'm going to share with you the secrets to staying aware in the face of intense triggers so you can stay grounded, present, and aware and respond powerfully. This changes everything. Just before we proceed, I want to quickly announce that we're starting a new 6-week arc in my community platform, Awake and Embodied. We're going to focus on ending mind identification, deeply awakening to your true nature, and stabilizing in awakened peace. It's a bit late notice, I know, so I apologize, but I've been really busy creating new stuff for you. It starts tomorrow, Sunday at 1 p.m. EST, so if you want to join us for the start of this arc, now's the best time to jump in, and the link is in the description. Anyway, so what's the trick? Well, if you pay close attention, you will notice in these moments of intense triggers, intense physically felt sensations arise in the body area. Usually, we go straight to the thinking about it, and we don't pay attention to how we're actually feeling. And when I say feeling, I mean physically feeling in the body. But if we pay close attention at the time, whether it's seething rage triggered by someone's absent-minded comment or intense triggered anxiety by some apparent bad news, we feel rising sensation in the body. And it can feel like heat, density, contraction, nervous energy, or a variety of sensations. But if we get underneath all the labels and descriptions, we experience it simply as raw sensation appearing to come from the body area. Now, these sensations are the presence of rising emotional energy. And this energy begins fueling a lot of personal thoughts. What the hell did he just say? I can't believe she just did that. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Or perhaps a lot worse that I can't say here on YouTube. The temptation is to allow the attention to focus down onto the thoughts and follow all of them and speak them out loud or enact some reactive behavior. This is when you get into long arguments with your partner that afterwards seem completely silly, or you can't even remember what you were really talking about. This is when you want to rage text back the boss, but you know you'd probably get sacked, and so you stuff that feeling down and feel crappy for the rest of the day. It might seem that the best thing to do is to try to use pure willpower to pull yourself out of it, to use willpower to stay present and not become reactive. But the trouble is, we find this doesn't work. We might be able to take a deep breath and stay present for a moment, but the next minute we feel like we've given up and allowed ourselves to be taken over. It feels like so much effort to stay present, and the temptation to just let it rip is too much. Besides, it feels justified. It feels righteous. After all, why should we let them get away with it, right? They need to be made aware of what they're doing, right? At least that's what we think, until afterwards we realize it all got a bit too personal and we ended up putting a sour feeling in the relationship. We realize there must be a way to communicate how we feel without causing all this chaos or having to run away and hide and avoid. Instead of trying to use willpower to pull yourself out of it, instead Relax the attention back. Zoom out from the thinking by perceptually relaxing. Become aware that you're aware and feel the bodily sensations. And breathe. Although this seems deceptively simple, simply feeling the bodily sensations and staying rooted with what you're physically feeling can completely transform the situation and be the difference between seemingly disappearing down a rabbit hole of triggered thinking, allowing things to go OTT and destructive, and remaining present and aware for long enough to inspire a completely different outcome, one with enough mutual understanding to diffuse the situation and have you both learn something. It's not that the thoughts aren't at all true or relevant. The other person might be doing something genuinely wrong or at least unhelpful. Or sometimes we need to draw a stern boundary, or say a stern no, or remove ourselves from the situation. This isn't about being passive or being a doormat that everyone can walk all over. It's not about being some constantly peaceful and serene sage floating on a cloud all the time that never says anything assertive or never speaks up against injustice. It's about remaining aware of yourself, remaining aware of your true power. You see, when you stay aware of your being and aware of the sensations, allowing them to move and flow, you gain access to a deeper wisdom and a deeper power. You may still communicate what you think and feel, but it comes from a much more impersonal place. It's infused with the wisdom of aware consciousness, and so counterintuitively, the other person is much more likely to change, understand what you're saying, or come around to your point of view. You know, you'd be surprised what you can say when you stay aware of awareness, feel the sensations, and communicate with power. We often get caught between two extremes, either flipping out and giving that other person a piece of our mind, making it all personal, and ending up in a fight that no one wins, or trying to be all nice and people-pleasing and be all softly, only to find it has absolutely no impact, and the other person just carries on doing exactly the same thing, even if it looked like they were listening. When you remain present, breathe into the diaphragm, feel the sensations, and communicate your truth without conceptualizing them as a bad person who needs to be made right. You can be surprised at how some people will actually end up saying, actually, you may have a point. They sense, either consciously or subconsciously, that you're not enacting the first form of violence, reducing them to the idea of being just a person who thinks and feels these things. When you already have a rigid idea of who they are and how they are, and that's what you're seeing, that's what you end up seeing more of. You're saying, this is who you are, and so they conform to that belief. When you state what it seems like you're seeing and experiencing, but you don't hold a heavy concept of them in your mind, they are free to flex and perhaps change because they're not being held to a rigid concept or assumption about who they are. Of course, some people just seem to exhibit the same pattern over and over again, and so sometimes it's best to just pivot away from them. This isn't about never having any sensible, intelligent judgments about anyone or being blind to dangers of other people or manipulation. It's about being intelligently open by staying aware of the open, aware intelligence within you. If all these fancy sounding concepts about awareness or beingness sound too abstract in the moment, at least just feel the bodily sensations. At least Just remain aware of what you're feeling in the body and see what happens. See how this little bit of deeper presence actually has profound effects. You see, even if it feels like you're 100% right and the other is 100% wrong, when you zoom out, you can see the other side of the coin, the rest of the picture. Maybe there's a way in which you can both evolve. There usually is. When there's intense triggers, the bodily sensations can get very intense and uncomfortable. And this is what fuels the temptation to disappear your attention purely into the thinking. It's almost like an escape from what you're really feeling. If you're having a heated discussion with your partner, you may feel that heat as physically felt sensation. You may sit there feeling all kinds of discomfort in your body and a looming temptation to be purely personal about everything. It feels like that's where the relief would come from. But it makes it worse. It's deeply important to recognize that these sensations, however uncomfortable, cannot harm your being. They cannot harm who you truly are. You see, moments of intense triggers can seem like a curse, but in reality, they can be the greatest gift. They're like signposts pointing you back to yourself. They're usually a sign that something needs to be processed and released. Of course, there are triggering times in life that are seemingly unrelated to any past pain or trauma. If an explosion goes off and you feel intense shock in your body, or a sense of heart-pounding fear in the face of a potentially violent person, these are, of course, a natural response. But what we're talking about here are usually triggers that are connected to past pain and emotional wounds. This is why some people seem to stay calm and even chuckle in the face of someone saying something extremely stupid, and some of us burst into a fit of rage and reaction. You see, the reason you feel so emotionally triggered and reactive is often because that energy is there anyway, waiting to be triggered. I had so much of it myself. It only took someone saying the smallest thing, and I would feel the anger rising. It only took one little thing to apparently go wrong, and my heart would be pounding with adrenaline-fueled fear. This was because I had so much suppressed trauma and emotion locked up in my body, just waiting to be triggered. Staying aware in the face of intense triggers is one thing. It's vitally crucial, but we have to become aware of why there's so much emotional energy getting triggered in the first place. You see, when you release much of the suppressed emotion, uncomfortable emotions in the body, there's a lot less triggering to begin with. Eventually, you don't have to stay aware in the face of intense triggers so much because you don't feel so triggered by what's happening anyway. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, like some kind of ultimately untriggerable guru or sage. I still have my moments where the heart rate goes a little bit up or I get a little bit passionate maybe. And who knows what the future holds. But I can tell you, since processing and releasing much of my old emotions and trauma, the difference is night and day. Just scroll back to the bottom of my channel to see the change and how much I was obviously holding in my body. My body was pretty much a highly uncomfortable place 24/7, and I finally sought out help when my body was so painful I thought it might actually be a physical illness and I might have to go to hospital. Fortunately, I had a healer friend who said, "Actually, this sounds like emotional pain, Alex." And it turns out it was. So there was a lot of work on emotional processing and releasing, and it took some time, and it was a whole journey, but it was worth it. And now I have the approaches to continue processing and releasing whatever might still be there or might be laid down in the future. and I have ways to resolve and release instead of becoming re traumatized. You see, when uncomfortable old feelings get processed and released, the nervous system calms down and unwinds. Triggers are less intense to begin with, and the mind doesn't ramp up so much in the face of challenges. You're more easily able to stay as your true self, this beingness. It's what you are already. It just seems to get covered up by those dark, stormy clouds that rush in when there's emotional triggers. But like I said, they're not a curse, they can be a power. Each one of them says, wake up, stay aware of yourself. And through this awakening, amongst even the most intense triggers, true power and wisdom arises. And you're able to communicate from love, even when you feel pain and things are a bit heated. Your relationships flourish as you express so much more of what's being felt impersonally, authentically, instead of personally and accusatory. You stay grounded as who you really are. You sink deeper as the beingness that allows the old wounds and past pain to process. And a great healing happens with your family or partner. You're able to approach challenges with less sensations of fear and contraction, and you're finally able to consistently flow to manifest your goals and visions. This is why I put these emotional release processes in my platform, Awake and Embodied. I want everyone to experience the peace and freedom that we already are. I want everyone to see how simple it can be, not just talking for endless hours to resolve the darkness inside, but knowing ourselves as the safety of awareness in which we can allow the old contractions to unwind and release, so we don't just realize our true nature, but actually embody it too. Peace.